We start with point 2 on the agenda, the address by the OSCE Chairman in Office, Prime Minister and Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs of Albania, Mr. Edi Rama. And there will be questions and answers after his intervention. Mr. Prime Minister Kritari, thank you very much for your availability. I yield you the floor.
Please. Welcome.
Thank you all, and of course it's quite a extraordinary time, and so we have to keep going with these screens and multiple screens, and try to do our best. And I want to thank you all for the invitation to address the meeting of the Bureau today. And let me first say that we appreciate very much the role of the Parliamentary Assembly in our organization, and in particular your multi-level engagement at this time, and this very, very difficult and complex time. This pandemic, it's obvious, will define our chairmanship. It is an unprecedented public health emergency with tragic consequences for vast numbers of people all over the world. And I hope I speak for all of you when I say that our hearts go out to the victims and their families, and those whose lives have been torn apart by this virus. Our respect and admiration goes to all of those on the front line, whether in our hospitals and health services, or whether in essential sectors that had to keep going. The COVID-19 pandemic is not only a public health emergency, for sure. Its effects are devastating for the normal functioning of our societies, democracies, fundamental rights and freedoms, as well as the world economy, last but not least. This crisis is also a test of governance, by no doubt, a test in which the trust of citizens is a precondition of success. Without trust, it is simply impossible to maintain the high levels of public cooperation needed to protect people's life. As our president Tsereteli underlined in a recent op-ed, in order to instill and maintain the levels of trust required, we need exceptional levels of cooperation between executive and legislative branches, setting aside political differences in the service of the common good that in this time is defined so bluntly and so critically in the eyes of everyone. So no possible escape from that. And yes, I fully agree with the President's statements in that regard, and by no doubt parliaments have an important role to play, and every effort must be made to ensure they can carry out their co-representative, legislative and oversight functions. The vital role of parliaments in time of crisis was powerfully stated also in our joint press release with the ODIHR last week, as you may have seen. And as we move out of lockdown, start to try and open again, by no doubt parliaments can help to build social trust, help to ensure that the legitimate concerns of citizens and interest groups are openly discussed, can help to guarantee that information is made available to the public, and that the criteria of stable and transparent decision-making are met. In In my country, I might tell you that so far we are in a good place, overall, and we have been very fast in running home. Maybe because we were very aware of our weaknesses, and in the same time we have been very much careful to follow the scientific experts. So since 11th of March, we started very large and very severe, I would say, lockdown. And as we speak, we have a very small rate of death tolls per million. It's among the smallest in Europe and all over. And our system is solid. The percentage of beds that are occupied is small. We so far never needed more than 7 to 8 ventilators during the whole process of unleashing of the pandemics. And we are starting to open up as many others do, but of course there are many uncertainties and there are many questions still to be answered. In line with other states in similar position, we are planning a gradual process of opening up, and we are trying to repeat to people that this is happening by keeping the right to adjust in case things may develop in the wrong direction. So far, we, I think, have managed also to keep the democratic institutions functioning. We conducted plenary session of our assembly by respecting all these new rules of social distancing and by trying to not prevent the highest body of our democratic system to do its best in this situation. And in the meantime, the key parliamentary committees are conducting normal business online, and it happens to be even more transparent than before because media covers it largely than before. Of course, it's quite a challenge to keep going, and we know, as everyone I'm sure knows, that it will not be a short time, and it will ask a lot of adaptations. So the new normal after all this will not be the normal that we were used to before this, at least until the vaccine will be found. Then hopefully things will go back as they were. Now the challenges OSCE faces as an organization are very similar, I think, are very similar to the challenges we are experiencing in daily lives in all our countries. Finding the right balance between getting things done and staying safe, which is quite a clear objective. As As we move out of lockdown and into the next phase, getting the balance will be crucial, and will be crucial to have the people's understanding and cooperation all the way. For our chairmanship, it is vitally important that the work of the OSCE in field missions, executive structures, decision-making bodies continue as smoothly as possible. In the field, OSCE missions have each implemented contingency plans, as you know, which carefully balance duty of care with the mandate of the implementation. In Vienna, innovative measures have been put in place, which will enable us to conduct as many meetings as possible remotely. At this difficult time, the priority of the chairmanship has been to ensure that the Permanent Council can operate remotely, but operate. I'm pleased to report that the 23rd April meeting was successfully conducted online, with all 57 participating states involved and simultaneous interpretation in 6 working languages. Getting this right was vital for our organization to enable political consultation and steer the day-to-day activity. Without the Permanent Council, there can be no smooth functioning of the OSCE, we all know that. Committees have also been able to conduct their meetings online throughout the crisis, as we were doing here, and as we are doing here now in this Bureau meeting. The Secretariat also has taken appropriate steps to ensure that the OSCE can continue to function effectively in the service of all participant states while protecting staff and families. As the virus spread and restrictions were put in place by the OSCE host governments, we responded quickly by drafting alternative calendars to preempt potential scenarios. So we opted to postpone some events which we did not think could feasibly be held remotely, and we are thinking creatively about the formats of others in line with the relevant commitments. As most OSCE events are mandated by the participating states, there are limits on our margin of flexibility. But we are moving forward with discussions with participating states on possible draft decisions on human dimension implementation meeting, the human dimension seminar, and the supplementary meetings. The Ministerial Council scheduled for 3 to 4 December is the most important meeting in any chairmanship calendar, but this year it will present particular challenges, no doubt, as it is the event least suited to non-standard arrangements. The key principle in our planning has been the need to maintain balance, of course, both in terms of sharing the workload between the first and second semesters, but also in terms of reflecting our distinct priorities as chair and those of participating states. Beyond process, COVID-19 will undoubtedly have implications, we know, for the policy focus of the OSCE this year. The pandemic impacts our security, economic and environmental well-being, as well as human rights. We are discussing with participating states and the institutions how we should appropriately reflect this influence, this COVID influence in our thematics. The chairmanship is committed to ensuring that the OSCE remains a forum for dialogue and for building trust and cooperation, as it always has tried to be and will always try to be. Moving meetings and events online is, however, only an option if appropriate participation from the capitals, external experts, and civil society can be assured. Longer term, in view of this global crisis, which respects no borders and serves a stark reminder of the value of every single human life, I sincerely hope that the global resolve, solidarity, and cooperation we have seen responding to this pandemic will be sustained. I hope it will bring a new creativity and impetus to peace processes across our region, and I hope it will strengthen somehow multilateralism. my dear friends, in times of pandemics, the only certainty is the inevitability of a serious economic downturn. This is obvious. And everywhere we are seeing already unprecedented levels of unemployment, and the burden of this crisis will be distributed unevenly in our societies. As an organization, we'll be called to implement austerity to free up much needed funds for those most hardly hit. It comes with itself, I think, and we should not see this as a funding crisis, as yet another round of budget cuts to our programs and activities, but rather as our duty of solidarity. The OSCE must continue to serve the people we represent, but yeah, we'll have to do it with less resources, more limited at least. These will be painful times, will require difficult decisions, and will somehow challenge all of us, and I hope make us better. Our participating states will ask for prioritization, both within our institutions, across our organization, and in sorting out overlaps and duplications with other bodies. We all know this is needed. The chairmanship is conscious that there can be no return to business as usual, and will support efforts to focus our work on what we can and we do best. If the OSCE is to stay relevant in the post-COVID world, which is a big challenge, we'll need to come out of this a leaner and more agile and much more efficient organization. Otherwise, we are in front of a big risk for this organization itself. This is at least my strong feeling. To this end, cooperation between the various institutions will have to be stepped up. In this context, the OSCE joint statements of recent weeks have demonstrated the importance of speaking with one voice. Much has been achieved in recent years, but we can do much more in terms of closer and more integrated cooperation. In the context of austerity, this is no longer an option, but a vital necessity. In conclusion, let me bring to your attention that we do all well to remember that at the origins of this crisis was a violation of the freedom of expression. So our commitment to the defense of human rights as a foundation for European security has never been more relevant. And in view of the challenges we are facing and those that lie ahead, all parts of our organization will need to keep getting better at our respective jobs, and will need to keep working ever more closely together so that our democracies remain strong, vibrant, and our parliaments also strong and the right place where the society can see and understand the value we put to our human rights. Thank you for your patience, and here I end by expressing my pleasure to see you all good, and by wishing to you all to be as good as today till the end of this war with an invisible enemy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. It's good to have Albania in the chair. You know how to deal with exceptional times. So you are very well trained. And thank you for your appeal on keeping the organization together and cooperating together. That is exactly what we have always called for in the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. And now give the floor to our President, George Sheridan. I want to ask you something.
Very shortly, just to thank Chairman in Office for his very interesting remarks here. We all understand the difficulty of the job of Prime Minister, and at the same time to be also chair of this big organization, as you said, which should emerge after this crisis as a relevant organization. And I'd like to thank you for this guidance and for putting all the institutions, I think, closer to each other. That very much depends on activities and actions of a chairman in office and your ambassador, chairman of the Permanent Council. And I'm happy that all institutions, they have this understanding. We are in this trouble together. So it's not only pathetical words, but that's actual life that we live in at this moment. And also very difficult, to cope with domestic problems and also same time international. We understand that the resources you need and we all need. I'd like just to tell you that it's also very important at this moment in the priorities of the OSCE to keep eye on most vulnerable people in our regions here, the people who live in conflict zones and people who still live in migration camps. And we addressed this issue many times during our joint meeting, joint statements and joint activities that we have. So I think in your actions as a chairman in office with the Secretary General, with the Permanent Council and all the institutions, we have to still prioritize this issue. These people, they need help more maybe than others. And congratulations with the situation in Albania. Of course, at this moment, as you said, you are among of the countries which are with the less fatalities and the less cases. But as you said, the specificity of the situation of this virus is that a lot of uncertainty around, and I wish Albanian people all the best and success to you. And once again, just to say that it's very, very important at this moment for all of us to have strong leadership and a strong chairman in office. So we parliamentarians are for help, as we always say, and it will be interesting also from you if there are any specific issues we can be more active and support the initiatives of the chairmanship. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I said, we're lucky to have Albania in the chair because, to deal with the exceptional moments. We're also lucky to have President Tsereteli at the helm of the OSCE because he's a former Minister of Health and a medical doctor, so at the right place at the right time. Next in line is President Emeritus Ilkka Kanerva, a former colleague of yours as chairman in office. Ilkka.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Prime Minister, and hello to all of my colleagues. May I say that it has been a long way from the year 75 to this special moment. So being first out of the OSCE to be the chairman in office today is something special. I want to congratulate Albania very much indeed. Thank you for your great job in this respect. And also your priorities are very, very right. First, concrete results on the ground level. Secondly, to implement the concrete commitments. And if I have understood right, thirdly, also to increase the stability. So the openness, transparency, to promote Helsinki principles are very, very much welcomed among us. So thank you and congratulations to Albania. My key question is to the Prime Minister that if I have understood right, recently Russia has taken a new and maybe also the harder position in the OSCE Council. And if I have understood right, the idea is to give some kind of impression or appearance so that they are no longer a party or no longer a side of the conflict, but just a mediator. So they want to outsource themselves from the conflict. And so it means that I think that the idea is that the COVID-19 cannot be the reason for the OSCE, for us, all of us, to, in a way to concentrate only into the pandemic and to block or prevent our efforts, OSCE efforts, to settle the conflict in and around Ukraine. Just the idea is to concentrate only and in the COVID, and at the same time not to speak and not to take any specific responsibility of the conflict in the Ukraine. Especially, I have two things in my mind. Firstly, I think that ceasefire is especially in troubles today in there, and secondly, SMM's access has been blocked against its mandate in Ukraine borders. So there is also very recently Lavrov's letter to the OSCE leadership and to the leadership of the SMM. So, Mr. Prime Minister, do you have any comments on that letter? And then also the technical question, more or less, could you give some kind of comments? What will be the mandate of the Didmir Pusat special envoy's task in the OSCE in the upcoming times? Thank you very much, and all the best to you. Thank you.
Thank you, President Kanerva. If you agree, Prime Minister Rama, I will take two more questions and then I give you the chance to get them all together. So the next speaker is Vice President Azay Guliyev from Azerbaijan. Azay, you have the floor. Microphone, Azay. Azay, you have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me greet all of you from Baku, Azerbaijan, and thank Prime Minister and the Chairman in Office of OSCE for his availability and making a very, very interesting presentation about the Albanians' views and as a Chairman in Office, how to tackle the issues that is standing in the political agenda of our organization. It is not secret that everyone is thinking of what will be the global impact and also medium and the long-term consequences of pandemic, which is yet to be understood, but it is also possible that this crisis will cause or intensify conflict, especially in the context of existing global and regional tensions. There is a large list of serious worries and the problems that need to be discussed at the highest level of OECD countries. Multilateralism, economic crisis, sharply falling the oil prices, protracted conflict, a crisis in the nuclear arms control treaties, illegal migration, racist scapegoating, refugees, IDPs, and other many issues among them. If nothing is done, the situation is likely to become even worse. I think it is the right time to convene the OSCE summit of heads of states and the governments to discuss all these global issues to find a collective response to them. So, Mr. Prime Minister, my proposal to you as Chairperson in Office is to have an open discussions with your counterparts on this matter and try to find the way of realizing this initiative. As you know, the last OSCE summit was held long ago in Astana in 2010. It's about 10 years ago. So it is the right time, according to my understanding, to come together at the level of the heads of states and the governments to find the appropriate answer and also collective response in the best possible outcomes to the crisis. So I would very much appreciate if you comment on that issue. And the last point is about the conflicting situation in the OSCE area. As you may know, that the last elections taking place in Abkhazia and the Nagorno-Karabakh region of Azerbaijan, which is not recognized by international community, made the serious concern for all the international community and the members of many OSCE countries. Of course, I do appreciate that the OSCE Minsk coaches made a statement on that issue, as well as the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly made it clear that it cannot be accepted, and these type of illegal elections have been heavily rejected by all the international community. So, in the light of such illegal activities, what is the main, let's say, portfolio of the chairmanship to tackle in appropriate way this issue and to make sure that this never could be accepted by any member country as well as by the OSCE entirely. So thank you very much for your attention. I will be very grateful if you make some comments on those questions that I raised. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vice President Guliev. And I'll give the floor to Artur Gerasimov, who is the Vice Chair of the Second Committee from Ukraine, I may add from Eastern Ukraine, so he knows the region very well. Artur, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Roberto. Dear Mr. Prime Minister, dear colleagues, dear Mr. President, dear Secretary General. First of all, yes, we understand that coronavirus now is the priority number one, but we are obliged not to forget about other extremely important issues. Ukraine situation is Georgia, I mean occupation of part of the Georgia, situation in Nagorno-Karabakh, etc. And I totally support the President Emeritus Ilka Kanerva with his request, with his question about situation with the Russian aggression in Ukraine and related issues. And, you know, I wanted just to add to Mr. Kanerva's speech a few comments. According to our information, Russia really continues to use pandemic as an opportunity to eventually lift sanctions. But Crimea is still occupied. Eastern Donbass regions and Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast are still occupied. And just a few comments for the last month. Only last month in Donbass, 7 our soldiers killed and more than 50 wounded. Shellings and sniper work every day. Second, I totally prove that SMM is blocked by Russian occupation forces with purpose to visit all the territory of which is not under government control. They are really blocked from visiting all the territory. And just also two more comments about Crimea. Just for your information, recently Russia created a special law which restricts land ownership in Crimea for all the people excluding Russians. It means that land ownership now belongs only to the Russian citizens. It's on the occupied territory. Second point, they still continue and even increasing recruiting Ukrainian citizens in Crimea into the Russian army. And this is also a very strict violation of the international rules. And, you know, dear Mr. Prime Minister, dear colleagues, I think that we need not to allow aggressor country, in this case Russian Federation, to use the pandemic opportunity with its purpose to lift the sanctions. That's my small intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gerasimov. And now I'll give the floor to Vice President Kari Henriksen from Norway. Kari, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for a very inspiring and good speech. I think you addressed the 3 dilemmas in the OSCE work very precise. It's about life and death, that is the virus fight. It's about democracy. It's about securing the human rights. And it's about the dilemma nationalism and internationalism. And you were also pointing that the need for consensus in the international organizations and especially in OSCE. So I would like to ask you, how do you see the possibilities in these in the situation we are in now? How is the possibility, and which steps do we have to take to ensure that we can develop a culture for more consensus in the OSCE organization ahead and after this this pandemic? Because, as you said, we are going to have a normal life, hopefully not so long in the future. But I think it's very important, a very important point, the need for manage to balance all these three dilemmas in a good and appropriate way, and then make sure that we build trust and consensus in this, we use this crisis to build more trust and more consensus. I would like to have your views on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President Eriksson. Mr. Prime Minister, I will give you now the floor for your replica. Thank you. You're still muted.
Yes, yes. Thank you for all this, and yeah, I will take it from the point where Roberto left it in the while opening the questions when he said Albania was well prepared. I think, yeah, we had an absolutely stunning period of time before the pandemic. First, we had our inner disputes that flourished in incredibly intense firecrackers. And then when it was over, we thought, okay, now it's time to breathe normally. It came the earthquake. And then after the earthquake, we said, okay, now it's time to breathe normally. It came the pandemic. So, so it's, in a way, yes, we were prepared, but I would wish to not be prepared and to not have all this shit. Sorry. Anyhow, the first thing I would say, following trying to answer the questions, is that yes, there is this risk. There is this risk that this situation can somehow undermine a lot what has been already achieved, especially in areas where we don't know very well. Our situation is not the best. We'll continue to follow with clear, with even bigger attention if possible. There is no doubt that these times need more understanding and more spirit of higher spirit of cooperation and collaboration. Easier said than done, but okay, we have anyhow to say it. All diplomatic efforts will continue to be done in order to have the full access to SMM. We know very well what a force for good SMM has been in that territory, and we all understand that undermining the SMM work, it's harmful for the people, by no doubt. So full freedom of movement of our monitors, and you know, without entering in details, it's what we need to do, and it's what we need to achieve, and is what we need to push for in daily basis, and we are doing it. And of course, we are aware of our limits, but within our limits, we will do it permanently. And in that, I want to thank wholeheartedly all the people in Vienna that are working and not only on the side of the mission, but also on the side of the institutions there within the OSCE. Now, to our friend from Azerbaijan, I would say that Albania cannot and does not recognize any election on disputed zones. This is, I think, clear, and we have done its part through the personal representative in South Caucasus. So this is also, I think, what you need to know. And yeah, we know very well that talking about all the issues we were talking before this pandemic is today more difficult. Is today more difficult all over the range of our action. But at the same time, it's very important to continue and say that we have to read the facts. We have to read the facts in a similar way. Right now, we have a problem. We have a problem with fact readings. And I'm referring here to our Ukrainian friends. He knows that we went there. We went there to see the reality from near. And so to agree on the measures, we need to have a common understanding on the facts. We cannot have agreement on measures when different sides have different ways of reading the facts. This is, and the OSCE is there to exactly help and make sure that there is a common way of reading the facts. I know, again, it's easier said than done, but we cannot do anything else than that. Make all the efforts to have a common reading of facts. This is our mission, and this is what we should do. And I would conclude by saying, you know, I don't think we'll be soon to the normal we were used to be before this started. I don't think. I don't think. I think we will have to adopt ourselves to a new normal, and the new normal cannot be the lockdown. It's not possible. It's not feasible. It's devastating in many ways. Because of course our duty is to protect lives. Our duty is to not let people without intensive care. Our duty is to not let people without ventilators and so on. But in the same time, you know, it's not difficult, and you don't need to be a scientist to understand that the lockdown has other devastating. So it's a cure that you know can have side effects that can be devastating in terms of mental health, in terms of home violence. We've seen all over the places numbers of domestic violence increasing. Child molestation. I saw today some numbers on child molestation in US increasing. So it's all there, and of course economy. So I don't think any of us imagined that we would face this, not because of the pandemic itself, but I don't think we would face this in the sense that all the world is suffering from lack of clarity. All the states, the biggest, the most developed, the states from where knowledge used to come like a guaranteed fact, it's missing. So we have to deal with that, and it's not easy. It's not easy at all. So thank you again to everyone. I don't know if I was good in answering the questions, but the bottom line is we are here to do everything we can to push for different sides to collaborate and to have different views get as much as possible to the point that opinions do not replace facts. This is our challenge. So, Mr. President, thank you very much for this, and Roberto, thank you, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All the best to you. And
thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. This assembly will remain active and will, of course, make lots of proposals to the governments in the coming months. And of course, we will see you definitely in December at the ministerial meeting, I hope. Parlamentari Shumë, Kryetari, and grazie mille for what you're doing for Italy.